While we're on this item, and this deals with the sheriff's department and staffing for the jail, correct?
Yes.
I'm talking to the county attorney now.
Yes, sir, that's my understanding.
Okay, would you bear in mind there hasn't been time for like an executive session on it, and that would be iffy anyway. Can you explain, being one of two non-lawyers on this court, okay? Can you explain to me the impact of this amicus brief that was filed in reference to O'Donnell versus Harris County?
We can certainly do that, and as you said, it might be more appropriate in an executive session later, but the county...
We don't have...
I understand.
Timing doesn't really allow for, and it certainly wouldn't be, I don't think, an emergency. But I'm concerned about how this impacts Commissioner's Court, impacts executive sessions. I mean, I've never been through something like this before.
And I will say, Commissioner, it is unprecedented for the county attorney also, so we are studying this issue, and I suppose the other commissioners know what we're talking about. It's an amicus brief filed by Commissioner Ellis in the O'Donnell case, and we are looking into that, and we'll certainly bring a report back to the commissioners.
Did anybody involved in this amicus brief actually talk to law firms to try to get them to sue Harris County over this case?
I don't know, Commissioner.
Commissioner?
Maybe I can answer any questions. It is an amicus brief on behalf of the Legal Defense Fund and me, and I have looked at the law, and any member of Commissioner's Court, Commissioner, has a right to their own opinion. And when they do, they're still a commissioner. So I'm very proud of the brief. I have looked at the law. And if the question is whether or not in any way a commissioner could be excluded from executive session because they did an amicus brief, I've looked at the law, and I suggest you look at it. I'd be more than happy to give you the briefs. Unless there is an item involving a commissioner's personal financial interests, they have a right to be there. So if that's the question, at least I've heard rumors that there were some concerns. But look, that's no secret how I feel about that litigation. I've been very open and candid about that. I would encourage you, public, anybody else, to look at my track record over the last 32 years in public office. I've been a very strident advocate for criminal justice reform. So if that hurts somebody's feelings, I'm sorry, but it's certainly how I feel.
It has nothing to do with feelings. What I'm trying to figure out is when it comes to, for example, confidentiality, so that basically there won't be any confidentiality in reference to the case, because
as I understand the law, and you can certainly ask the legal, but anything that is discussed in executive session has to remain confidential. So if you disagree with the rest of the court, or in this case, I disagree with the rest of the court, if I walk out of that room and I repeat something that was said in executive session, I violated the law. Now, that's what the law says.
Is that correct, Mr. Sword?
That is correct. And
what's the penalty?
I don't know, Commissioner. I'd have to look that up.
It would be kind of interesting to know.
Commissioner Ellis, let's just go ahead and ask the blunt question. Do you have a financial interest in this? Were you given any finder's fee or anything of the sort?
I have no financial interest, and if so, I certainly would not have done amicus.
Mr. Sword, I guess you're going to have to advise us on.
And we will do that, Commissioner.
I mean, it's obvious that there may be things that some strategies that the county attorney's office has that you might not necessarily share anymore. I don't know.
We'll look into it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Legislative relations.
I have to go back. Commissioner Ellis, you have been a commissioner for 3 months. And the way that you're trying to bring about reform in an area to where we had trusted Commissioner Alfranco Lee to be our vanguard in this area. We have pretrial release programs. We have other things that he was the innovator for us in those regions. And the way that you're going about helping us serve our populations that we care about is by joining in a lawsuit and not by sitting in that chair as a commissioner to bring us better ideas how to build a better mousetrap. And I want you to know I'm calling upon you to put on your commissioner hat, not your lawyer hat, not your senator hat, but your commissioner hat. And that's my comment.
Well,
And help us do a better job where we can, because folks need to be served. There are some of your ideas, when I've read your brief in a court of law, not in your communication to your fellow members of court, that actually might have some good merit to it to where we could help do a better job of serving our populations. I want to know about it from your commissioner hat, not from your lawyer hat. Thank you.
well, Commissioner, I appreciate your comments, and let me say to you that I've been very candid. I can't discuss anything that was said in executive session, but I will say this to you. It shouldn't be a secret that I was contemplating filing an amicus brief. Now, that does not make me a party to the lawsuit, but I have certainly said publicly on several occasions that the position of Commissioner's Court is the court's position, but it's not my position. Now, let me say this to you. As someone who's been pretty active on criminal justice reforms over the years, I mean, from time to time, I've agreed with Harris County, other times I have not. I mean, we got one of the strongest discovery statutes in the country. I certainly didn't pass it alone, but it was over a case that a not-for-profit I chaired the board of got Michael Martin out of prison after being in that 20-some-odd years that led to what I'm told is the strongest discovery statute in the country. May help even some member on this court someday. I mean, the compensation statute, I got a pretty long background. I mean, this county did a great job on creating a public defender's office. I certainly had a role in passing the legislation that lets you do it. No county commissioners ever asked for that.
Let us do it.
Yeah, gave you the option. And Commissioner, I also lit a spark with my dear friend L. Franco Lee to put that issue on the table after the statute had been there for roughly a decade before we started that issue here in Harris County. And although I stayed behind the scenes, trust me, you don't have to wait until we're on the other side to talk to L. Franco Lee. But clearly I played a role in that, including the money that came from the state for a pilot program to advocate for it. So look, I appreciate the strides that Harris County's made, but to be honest with you, in my judgment, this litigation helped to spur some of that. I mean, this county has been, as large as it is, to have such a large number of people incarcerated, I think we moved far too slow. And to be honest with you, litigation has played a role, in my judgment, in moving the ball forward. And although, I may only be here 4 years, I may be here about 40 years. If I live long enough, and I hope you and I are here working together for a long time, but I, to be honest with you, am tired of waiting. I think Harris County has waited too long to move in this regard, and I am not going to sit on my hands and just wait for the county to move. I'm going to do as much as I can to encourage, to cajole, to plead and beg. I'd be more than happy to have more discussions like this in candid right here, by the way. I think that's a good thing. Now, if my style is a little different from the traditional commissioner, hey, I appreciate you and I'm willing to learn, but I'm not going to change what I've done for 32 years in public office. And I'll put that record up on policy issues over these years against anybody.
Thank you for your comment. I would still like to have you give us a meaningful proposition and a dialogue of what we as a body can do other than have to defend ourselves in litigation.
I think that's a good idea. In fact, I would request on the next Commissioner's Court agenda, I'm given the ability to bring a group of experts right here in public, because then all of us can hear, to give us some ideas on best practices around the country, not just
While
involving this
litigation is
lawsuit.
pending, Commissioner?
Oh, no, I mean,
Counselor?
issues like the notion of managed assigned counsel is a great reform. Judge, I mean, Commissioners, you know, the idea of poor people going to court and the judge picking their lawyer to represent them, as an example, is a very meaningful reform. But I'd be more than happy, in fact, we ought to have, as important as this issue is, it'd be a good idea to have an item on the agenda at every court meeting to talk about some best practice some other county in the state or in the country is doing, to look at whether or not it's something we ought to emulate in Harris County.
And of course, Commissioner, you don't have to put that on a court as an agenda item. We have those kind of conversations about everything we do, whether it's flood control or transportation or purchasing. I know you're passionate about criminal justice, but so are we. And I think what comes across here is that it's kind of an us, a you versus us attitude. And that's unfounded. We're really all on the same side. And I think we need to be on the same side. And as long as the legislature's meeting, and since you brought up public defender, I would hope that when you go to Austin, you would remind them as they pass Senate Bill 2 that the cost of public defender is an unfunded mandate that's been put on the county. And when asked about it on the Senate floor, Senator Betancourt said, oh no, those costs aren't going to be in the calculation. But in fact, they are in the calculation still. And so I would hope that you would work with us to make sure that while we're talking about criminal justice and everything else, we don't let your former colleagues up there emasculate our ability to do our job, including the public defender.
I'm going to do all I can. As you know, Judge, I spent a lot of time up there, not just on this issue, but on others as well. But as you know, the requirement that people be given a lawyer is a constitutional requirement in our federal constitution. And prior to 2001, all of that cost was on the counties. And when the Fair Defense Act was passed, not proud of the source of funding, because the money really comes from court fees. It's almost circular, the way it's funded. First time Texas put a nickel in is because more people who go to jail have to pay a fee. Then we take that and give that to the counties. And to be honest with you, I think by working together, the state finally gave a little bit of GR. And I was told late last night they're taking that out, and they're going to take some of the court fee. The plans to take some of the court fee and use it for something else, so we all have to fight on that. But it is a federal or United States constitutional requirement. And so I'm suggesting in the short term, we may have to look at what we spend on appointed counsel and find a way that we meet that constitutional mandate by changing the way the lawyers are picked.
Judge, you mentioned Public Defender's Office. I just wanted to point out for everybody that we now spend more on criminal defense than we do on flood control. And I think that's incredible.
Okay?
Just one second. Mr. Sword,
Yes, sir.
I was reading this brief here. Is the Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, is he a party to this suit?
He is.
But didn't he also give a statement in support of the plaintiffs?
He did prior to his being sheriff, yes, sir.
But he's a defendant
Yes, sir.
who's supporting the plaintiff.
Yes, I don't want to mischaracterize his testimony, but in general, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I think we're at legislative relations. We could
It's an
spend,
important thing.
we could
Relations
spend a
always
lot of time
important.
talking about legislative relations because there are things going on in Austin that are definitely not good for Harris County. Central Technology Services, Public Health Services, Community Services, County Library, Youth and Family Services, Constables, Sheriff, Fire Marshal, County Clerk, County Attorney, District Attorney, Pretrial Services, Justices of the Peace, District Courts, Travel and Training,